When we lean in and we trust, we're like, it's like the universe 10x's us in every
Yeah.
way. And our if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. You can
Hmm.
chase all the outcomes in the world, but I don't want to sit on my deathbed or sit in a hospital bed, have regrets of I don't want to have double regret. I don't want to have
Mm.
regret today for the things I want to
Hmm.
do. I don't want to have regret on my deathbed of, oh, I wish I'd done it. So I'm really leaning into this naturally trusting and what's coming up every day.
What happens when you finally stop chasing outcomes and you start trusting yourself instead? In this episode, I sit down with Reet German to explore what it means to rebuild your life from the inside out. Reet's story begins in India, travels across Canada, and finally lands in Oahu, Hawaii. After years of the corporate world, Reet sold her house, left her job, and set out with her husband and young daughter to travel across 23 countries in the span of a year. What started off as an what started off as an escape became a spiritual homecoming. Along the way, she reconnected with her mother after 23 years, made peace with her past, and redefined what health, success, and freedom truly means. This conversation is about trust, healing, and the courage to listen to your soul when it says it's time to move on. About listening to your intuition, following your heart, and trusting that even if the path isn't clear, it's still leading you somewhere true. So let me ask you this. If you stopped planning your life and started living it, what would you change first? This is my conversation with Reet German. Let's get it.
Welcome to Life Between Titles. I'm your host, Savan. Today, I've got my friend Reet German with me. Reet, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
I am too, Reet. It's amazing to me how fast these things come together. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and we had a fantastic initial conversation about your life and your journey, and I'm really excited to dive into that. For those that don't know, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. My name's Reet German. I'm actually known, my full name's Reet German. That would be my East Indian name, birth name. And I was born in India. I immigrated to just outside of Toronto, Canada in 1987. So at just the shy age of almost 8 years old, I moved and I lived there most of my life, almost 38 years. In 2020, my husband and I decided to make a huge life change at the beginning of the pandemic. We sold our home, sold everything, and bought a house virtually online. We downsized and we bought a townhouse and in Maple Ridge, BC, just about 45 minutes outside of Vancouver. And we drove across the country in the middle of a pandemic, and it was just a incredible experience of really embracing the unknown, embracing uncertainty, and not knowing it. We called it our plan without a plan because nobody understood what we were doing, why we were doing this in a time where everybody's like fear, so much fear and uncertainty. Here we are, like leaning into something like outrageous for I would say the average person because most people want to do the 9 to 5 to have the checklist life, and I was most people. I was that
Hmm.
most people. My husband and I, we had our garage, we had our 2 cars, we both had corporate jobs. And at the time I had already left my corporate job, so I was already on this discovering and coming back home to myself. We just leaned in. We moved out to BC. It was the best decision we ever made because as you know, during 2020, I think a lot of people started questioning their life, their priorities, their values. Who were they living for, and why were they doing the things they were doing? At least I think 50% of the population, maybe less, started to do that. There was other people that were just really kind of frozen and got afraid. And I vowed to myself at the beginning of the pandemic that I said, I remember saying this to a friend. I said, I am going to be better off after this journey when we move through this, and I'm not going to be broken. I just leaned in. I hired a coach. Both my husband and we both worked together with a life coach on our mindset. We were a bit stuck. Let's say we'd been together almost 14 years at the time, and we'd done all the things that we were supposed to do that were our parents and society thought was
Yeah.
success and wealth.
Yeah.
And except for that, our nervous systems were destroyed. Our marriage was kind of on the rocks. We had this new, beautiful, at the time, 2-year old. And we just I was like, I felt like we were checked out.
Hmm.
We were checked out and we didn't know our why. Our compass was just like it needed to be calibrated. So that's exactly what we did. We moved this time of the COVID pandemic, the lockdown. Instead of looking outwards, we just went in. We got
Hmm.
quiet. We started to live for ourselves. We started to really get clear on what were our values as individuals. And then we came together as a couple and said, now, what is our values going to be as a family to raise this little human that we brought into the world? And that was like, I think, like the real part of our journey that began. We started to break the molds that we were in. We started to stop living to other people's expectations and even challenging our own expectations of why did we have limits? Why did we why did we operate way we operated? Why did we think the way we thought? And we started to challenge and question those. So we landed in BC. We lived there just shy of 2 years, and I had this brilliant idea that I pitched to my husband. I was like, we knew one thing we agreed on. We were like, we love BC, but I think right now, for now, this is the transitional move. We didn't know what, we didn't know how, but we both knew this was a transition to something else. We didn't know. I just felt it in my gut. So, and there it was. I got this ping in my heart, in my intuition, saying, "You need to make a move. You need to go
Yeah.
travel." And I pitched this idea to my husband. I was like, "Hey, babe, what do you think if we either we rent out our house or we sell it, see what makes sense, talk to our realtor, and we go travel for a year?" Now it's 2022. We were just coming out of the pandemic. Things were opening up, and my daughter was going to enter kindergarten. And I was not feeling great about that as a parent. Coming out of COVID, the school systems in Canada, and I think North America in general, they were really burnt off. Like the teachers were burnt out. There was this hybrid learning, and they weren't sure the impact was gonna be on kids. I'm grateful that when we moved to BC, that we got my daughter into a forest school, little preschool, that she didn't miss a beat. Like she was outside with other kids, no masks, because they were able to do that. So she was able to still socialize. She didn't have that COVID experience as much as other kids did. So I was like, my number one priority is to keep my child's mental health, and her priority and her love for learning ignited. Like I don't want anything to impact her love for learning. And this first year of kindergarten is gonna make it or break it. I feel like that's the foundation. Either you're gonna have burnt out teachers that may not have the capacity. It's not their fault. They just don't have the capacity because now they've been thrown into this environment and they were dealing with parents online and never done before. So I said, I'm not making my kid an experiment. If anybody's going to do an experiment on my kid, it's going to be me. So
Mhm.
I pitched this idea to my husband. I said, let's go for a year. Let's take her kindergarten year. She's not going to miss anything great, but the opportunity that we will do in world schooling her will give her more of a love for learning in a broader spectrum, that you can learn more than one way. And
Mhm.
I wanted her to have I'm an interracial marriage. My husband is his ancestors are German, but he was born in the U.S. and
Hmm.
grew up most of his life in Canada. So I wanted her to know different cultures, languages, how the world operates, and what I don't want her to read in a book. I wanted her to know in different countries, see and smell and use her senses, and remember for herself that we really, as humans, are not so different. I think COVID put a lot of people against each other, and it's like either vaxxers, non-vaxxers, you quarantiners, and it was very divisive. And I'm not that type of person. I think doing the inner work slowly throughout my whole life and then really diving in, I said, we have to do something different with our child. She's the next generation, and
Hmm.
we have to heal ourselves and then have to help her have a fighting chance in this world of that. It doesn't have to go on a script. You don't have to follow somebody else's programming. And that's exactly what we did. So then we sold our house. It was the timing when I say trust your gut and lean in no matter what. 3 weeks before the market crashed and of like the first of 8 interest rate hikes, we sold our house at 3 weeks before we closed it. And we were able to cash out, which gave us a little more comfort and more opportunity to be like, we can do this now on our terms.
Right.
My my
That's
hus- my hus-
amazing.
my husband resigned his job, and he's a mechanical engineer. He worked for one of the largest bakeries in Canada at the time, and it was scary for him because engineers, they operate on a different mindset, right? Like they have a
Right.
different analytic. It has to make sense. We have spreadsheets. Read this doesn't make sense. And I'm very much let's lean in. Let's jump.
Yeah. I love
We'll
that.
f- yeah.
I love that. I was listening to a podcast, and one of the hot takes that I've been thinking about was this lady said, "I wish people would blow up their lives more." And initially, it gave me a little bit of pause, right? I was like, "What does that mean?" And she said, "There's a lot of good that can come from people just saying, you know what? I'm fed up with where I am. And it's either going to make or break me, but I'm going to make drastic changes." And that could be like you're maybe in a bad marriage, you're in the wrong job, you have maybe toxic friends, you need to move. And I always thought that was interesting because it takes so much, I think, courage, more courage and less planning, because you don't ever plan to blow up your life.
No.
But the idea of that, for a person who likes things in an orderly way, just strikes a ton of fear in my heart. But we are at a place where we're talking about transitions. That's what this entire podcast is about, is people in transitions. And so, for you, this journey of essentially blowing up your life and doing the things that your gut's telling you, what was sort of the straw that said, I'm going to go and do this? Were there a series of things, or one day you just woke up and you were just inspired and you just wanted to do it? Like, what did that look like?
That's a great question. So I'm going to back it up to when we were still just living in Ontario, just outside of Toronto. It already started. There was already writing on the wall. The cracks were there. So
Yeah.
I had my daughter at the
Yeah.
age of 37, and I had her through in vitro
Hmm.
fertilization. So after almost a decade of trying, and we had gone through this process, and it was
Hmm.
challenging. It was hard mentally, physically. So I was already very used to. I think as an immigrant, you're already used to the hard.
Yeah.
It's in
Agreed.
you, right?
Agreed.
And then so what happened when my daughter turned 1, I went for a regular checkup at my doctor's office, and they were like, they gave me this diagnosis of premature ovarian failure at the age of 38. And that basically means my body was already hitting menopause. And seeing numbers of doctors, they just didn't know what to do with me. They didn't have answers. It was like the answers I got was, your guess is as good as mine. And I said, let's not guess. I know you're not God, I know, but you do go to school. You have some knowledge and you're supposed to be the expert and we're supposed to work together. So that was the catalyst because I had already felt, Savan, I'd felt after having my daughter, it was the most beautiful time. And then shortly after, a year into it, I felt like I was going crazy. Like all of these symptoms that were unexplained, it makes sense now looking back 8 years, but I was in this, people call it a midlife crisis, and I've learned to call it a midlife awakening. So the awakening was happening. I was so not happy and I was ignoring the signs. I had been ignoring the signs of change must happen, Reed. Uh, you need to go back inwards. You need to do more inner work. But I didn't know what that meant. You don't know what you don't know. So um, that diagnosis really kind of tipped me. I, I, I actually, it got worse before it got better. I swear I declared like a war on my body, and that wasn't the mindset was for it wasn't great. It was, how could you do this to me again? Like
Mhm.
like first it was a challenge to get pregnant. Now I'm I couldn't accept the diagnosis. I was, life is about acceptance and I was like resistant and I dug my like nails in and I was resisting accepting this and what this new life would look like. And I got frustrated and it put a toll on me, my relationships, my marriage, every part of my life. I even had a hard time, I'm a very honest person. I was even having a hard time accepting motherhood, being like, why? Like something I wanted so bad, but I was like, why did I do this? I was questioning everything, and I think sometimes when you hit that kind of rock bottom and it's your health related, it gives you the shake and the awakening that you need to be like, I don't know what, but we need to make changes. And at the same time, my husband was starting, he got burnt out. He got burnt out from commuting from like 2.5, 3 hours a day. And coming home, it felt like we were just shells of human. We were just shells. There was, the soul was somewhere, but we weren't living for ourselves. And that was the catalyst where my husband's like, we're sitting on a couch one day and he's like, do you want to move to out west? And I literally looked at him and I think I told you, I was like, don't fuck with me. Like,
Yeah,
don't,
right.
I'm a
Yeah.
woman. I'm a woman in like
Right.
basically now in menopause. I was like, I don't know what's I'm capable of, but I said, don't mess with my emotions. And
Right.
he's like, I'm not messing around. I'm serious. I think this is what we need. And I was basically he said, I want, this was June. He's like, I want to be in BC by fall. And I was like, done. I called the realtor the next day. We got the ball rolling. And like you said, this just like this podcast came together so quickly. The house sold so quickly. Like everything just like when you make that certainty and decision and go all in on yourself, despite the fear, despite and just have that little bit of courage and jump in. Um, I think the universe or whatever you want to, the creator, and you align, you tap in, you plug yourself in, and things happen you just couldn't imagine. And how fast? Time doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
exactly what happened.
Agreed. I love this idea that you have been talking about. I don't know if it's something you've intentionally done, but it's this idea of moving with purpose, but without a general direction, right? You sort of understand where you want to go, but you don't really know the path at which you're going to take. And I absolutely love that because I think more times than not, we get stifled by these arbitrary things like, hey, if I work 6 more months, I'm going to be a senior director or senior manager. Or, my daughter needs to be getting 3.5 in high school so that she can go to a college. And next thing you know, you're sort of stuck in this rut of 5-year plan that really, you don't understand what the outcome of that's going to be. And I'll admit, I get into that same mode too. For you, when you guys were coming up with your purpose or coming up with your drivers, when you made this move and you sold your house and you said, I'm going to travel the world, What were some of the big things that really inspired you at the time? Was it just about seeing the world, or maybe it was something bigger than that?
I think initially, one of our highest values is our health.
Mhm,
And my husband and I both, n- we didn't feel very healthy mentally, physically, emotionally. I knew I'm grateful to have such an amazing partner who does trust me and leans into my wildest intuition, like, and my ideas. And he just like, he thinks
mhm,
about it, he questions me, but then generally he says yes because he's like, Reed, we've been together 17 years. He's like, you never steer us wrong. When we lean in and we trust, it's like the universe 10x's us in every way. And and our if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. You can
mhm,
chase all the outcomes in the world, but I don't want to sit on my deathbed or sit in a hospital bed, have regrets of what ifs. And lately something that downloaded was like, I don't want to have double regret. I don't wanna have
mm,
regret today for the things I wanna do, and I don't wanna have regret on my deathbed of, "Oh, I wish I'd done it." So, I'm really leaning into this naturally trusting and what's coming up every day because the world is changing so fast, and I learned through life, getting coached and that chasing outcomes is you're just spinning your tail because you really have no control of the how. You all you have to do is have keep finding that courage. Keep finding that courage in every step of the way to trust. And you know what that builds? That builds self-confidence. That builds that self-trust and that relation with your like the relationship with yourself. And going back to answer your question, I think that was missing for my husband and I the most, that connection and the relationship with ourselves, not like as a married couple, but just as human beings and being like, what is even that look like? We've been
yeah,
doing all of this for, and it's not good or bad, but our parents gave us the American dream by migrating and giving us what they could. And then we were placed with a mission on our own hearts. We came here, we chose to come here and do a purpose, and my purpose was to keep evolving and in every way, whatever that means. I'm just figuring it out as I go. All I know is if I don't evolve, I'm going to become extinct. And that's what happens. Like if you look at history, when 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 people don't evolve, they become extinct in like, I'm using that as metaphor, as in like, the boomers thought oh, the internet's gonna not last. We don't have to jump on. Well, it's like next generation, the AI is just gonna no. It's we do have to learn, we have to be discerning, we have to question things and not just be a yes person and take everything at face value of what people are telling us and believe it and being like, yeah, okay, I'll drink the Kool-Aid. And
mhm.
I think that was what woke up in me. What When my health diagnosis, that was the awakening I needed because I don't think it would have woke me up if you hit me any other way. Lost a job,
Yeah,
lost something, more material. It had to be like really severe.
I believe that. Um, for people that are listening to this right now that are maybe at the same crossroads in their life, what were some practical things you did that they can take away from if they're thinking about selling their house, maybe moving to a different country? How did you approach that period of time in your life? Because I would imagine that was probably a very stressful time. You probably had to like do a bunch of planning and have a lot of conversations. How did you approach that? And then maybe a follow up question to that would be, how did your community react to that? Your friends, your family, what did they say?
Ugh. I think I'll answer the second part first
Okay,
because I
all
think
right.
it'll help me answer this first one. So that was probably one of the hardest parts.
Okay, okay.
Family was we really made some of our family very angry. Um and I did not know why they were angry, and it's something I was like, how are you angry at me for living my life? And at the time, I couldn't put myself in their shoes. We, but as I've learned, I had to take my shoes off and then put myself in their shoes and say, how would you feel? And I said, I understand. I don't have to agree with it.
Hmm.
And I had to just find a place of acceptance and understanding that they're hurting because they're thinking of the I, they're thinking of themselves, how it impacts them. And I was thinking more of my family collectively and the future. And I think you have to, when you make such a large decision like this, it's going to rock your world because your friends won't understand and they'll have a lot of emotion and charge around this. Your family will have a lot of charge around it, which is that's where the work begins because it's gonna make your compass like not trust yourself and make you question yourself and being like, um, that fear comes up and I'm letting
Hmm.
people down. The people pleaser in you feels disappointed. There's this power struggle happening of should I change my mind? Like I want to be accepted. I just want to make my parents and my in-laws proud, and I'm pissing them off. I had to. I think at the time for me, there became like there was a little bit of sacred rage, sacred anger I called it, because it was my driving force. I know why I needed to that moved me forward. I don't necessarily advise everybody to get angry, but that was me, to be like, "Hey guys, we all have one life, and as much as I would love your acceptance, I would love your approval and wish us well, I don't need it." And I'm
Right.
not gonna wait for it. Because
Right.
if we wait, again, you will be on your deathbed. You will
Yeah,
face
it'll never
yourself.
happen.
It will never happen. And so that was the work. That was the hardest part. The process to making to me felt easy. We created a literally my husband and I, we were both project managers. We sat down and we reverse engineered our thing. So we want to get here. We want to move to BC from Toronto. What do we have to do? Okay, we need what date? We set the date and we gave ourselves a hard deadline. And obviously that shifts a little bit based on the closing date of a house or depending on the rental agreements or whatever you have, but give yourself a deadline to commit. It's like anything, right? Just and be open that it may shift week or two. Don't try to control that outcome too much, but give yourself a deadline. And we gave ourselves the deadline, and from there we worked backwards. We said, okay, we contacted the realtor, the house went up for sale. We said we wanted to downsize. We made decisions as we went. We got more clarity. We said, we don't need this large house. We want to downsize. We downsized, and which allowed for us to have uh, money in the bank. Gave us a bit of a like room to play, wiggle room, and say, okay, this give us a confidence. And there was a lot of leaping of faith, I call it, because my husband did not tell his employer at the time that we were moving. And I was always staying at home with my daughter because it's COVID and I had to leave my job. I was doing sales and daycares were closed. So I wasn't working. We were relying on his income and we did it anyways. So he told his employer the day our house closed. And his employer was like, I wish you had given me more notice. But he's like, let me check. And he transferred him. When you have that much courage to just go all in and not even see the whole picture, not know all the steps, but you have to do this, when you trust yourself, you also remind yourself that you've made it through every battle you've ever faced. And when you're in that, when you're already like made that decision to go in all in, you have to lean into that, and the mindset matters, and say, hey, no matter what, everything I ever done in life wasn't easy.
Yep.
I am 100 for 100. I'm sitting here. When I bet on myself, it was hard to have our daughter, but I went all in, and we have a beautiful daughter. And
Hmm.
wasn't easy to be an immigrant and learn English, but here I am, have built my own life on the best terms and leveled up, so to say, based on what my parents were capable of doing. So I had to lean into and remind yourself. And I would implore every person to sit down during that time and make a list of everything you've ever done and been successful at. It may seem silly, but nothing is too small, because all of that prepared you for today. That decision you're about to make that feels scary, that you don't have a plan. And like my husband and I said, it was a plan without a plan. And we just said, we didn't have to know the whole future. We knew 3 months ahead that we wanted in 3 months to be on that other side of the country. And we just focused our intention on that. We didn't want to know what we didn't focus on what a year looked like, 5 years looked like, until we got to Vancouver. Then we were able to give ourselves space to integrate and slow down and think about what the bigger plan looked like, or what we wanted and dream bigger. But for that interim, while doing it, get very like micro and one by one. Like, we were selling stuff on marketplace, we were donating, going to the dump, and you really start questioning all your material goods.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You probably have seen more of the world than most people on this planet with your travels, I would imagine. What do you think was some of your big takeaways from just experiencing other cultures and other people? How did that impact sort of how you are now?
So it started off with an amazing piece of advice from somebody dear in my life before we left for our year around the world, which we went to 23 countries in that year. This beautiful woman told me, she said, "Reet, 95% of the world and the people you will meet are good and will help you. And it's only like maybe a 5% in the whole world. So don't let that stir you. Don't let your fear of differences, or what, like appearances and culture, differences of languages and culture, lean in and trust people and trust yourself." And I think traveling around the world, and that's really truly what happened. We would rent Airbnbs. The owner, and we were in Egypt,
Mhm.
the owner of the Airbnb opened their homes and invited us to their, like in the smaller village, to their parents' house. And we showed up.
Wow.
We went and had dinner, and it wasn't like they had lots, but because they opened their heart, we opened our hearts and we said yes. And my daughter went and played with the kids in the village, and they couldn't speak English, but I said, there's a common language. You can sign, you can communicate when you want to, is what we learned.
Right.
Believing in the good in people will get you a lot further in life than painting people with a brush, and all of people with the same brush, and or despite their differences, I don't want to know them. I always say, lean in with an open heart. Just
Mhm.
go in, lower your guard, lower your expectations, because it's our own expectations that get in the way of what life is supposed to look like, what people are supposed to do and not do for us. And that's been some of the greatest lessons. I said, every time I'm disappointed, it's not because somebody else let me down. I had an expectation on another person of what they were
Yes.
supposed to do and not do. And that's none of my business. Like, mine is to be open and to accept that our differences, that we can still respect each other and even be friends,
Mhm.
despite our beliefs may be a little bit different. But if there's core values that, if you look underneath, they're very similar. We want love for our family, we want good health, we want to provide for our families. And if you can lean in on that, that's what we will bring the world together, and build really nourishing relationships in cross cultures, cross languages. And that was one of the biggest things traveling around the world. We went in open, not knowing all the languages, not um and also being able to apologize when maybe we did offend somebody, because we didn't know, we were ignorant of a certain something in their culture that you don't do or not do. And
Right.
we would be humbled and be honest and saying, can you teach us?
I I think
Travel
that's amazing.
Traveling is all about learning, and if you can just open yourself up and say, "Can you please teach me?" and just listen instead of thinking you know it all,
Mhm.
just go and be open to learning new methods, and it will enrich your life so beautifully.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, and I think you are a exceptionally brave mother. I know when I've traveled with Sammy, just over 2 states, my youngest daughter, I was exhausted. Just how did you manage 23 countries with an entire family? Like, what did that look like? How big were your bags?
Oh, well, that was learning. I'm not a light packer, so we
Yeah.
had, like, 3 really giant, we researched and we were like, "I don't know, are we gonna have go where it's, like, cobblestone?" And so we had got these, like, Osprey crossbred where they had wheels, we can pull them, but if we needed to, we they had straps, we can put them on our backs. So we had 3 of those and a couple little ones overpacked. I think going in at the beginning, you don't know, and what I learned very quickly is you can get anything and everything everywhere in the world. There's a
Yeah, right.
7-Eleven in every
Right.
corner around the world, and 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 a few times we shipped stuff back, and we got rid of a lot, as we would donate a lot if and we made this rule, my husband did, he's like, "Reet, if you put one thing in our suitcase, you're putting two thing out. So one in, two out. One in, two out.
Yeah.
And because you want to you get little souvenirs and you get like you see these amazing artisans and you want to support the local businesses and I took it as that. I went we would land in a country and it was like a new language, new currency, new time zone and we're like with a small child, and we have 1 child, so I think it was a little bit easier. I think 2 against 1 2 with 1 child, it was a little bit easier, but, um, like, I made it very clear to a lot of friends, I was like, "No shape or form was this a vacation. This was a full-time 24/7 job," and in you know, we pivoted a lot, we learned a lot happened during this trip that emotionally, mentally, challenged us and grew us, and we were adapting on the fly constantly. You wanna talk about constant change? It's like we would the only thing we put in place was we would book our flights out maybe 2 to 3 months out, and that's it. We didn't have
Mhm.
thing our Airbnbs or any places booked. Maybe sometimes a week or 2, we would before we'd be like, "Hey, babe, let's sit down." We fly out to the next country in 2 weeks. Let's sit down for a night, and we would spend maybe 3, 4 hours organizing, like, researching, and then we'd be like, "Hey, we wanna agree on this Airbnb. Let's do it, book it." And just have an idea of, like, couple of things that we would wanna see. We tried not to be touristy, but of course, you wanna see certain milestones, but we would really step into that country. We go shopped at the local markets. We cooked a lot of our own food and then integrated some, of we would wanna try the local foods too, right? We're such foodies, but when you're traveling for a year and if you eat out every day, your digestive system will be destroyed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so with
Absolutely.
health being one of our, like, highest values, we would shop locally, lots of produce and local um, being of East Indian descent, I was connecting with more of my culture, and I started to make my own ghee, which is, clarified
Mm.
butter. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
I would source out, like, like, not pasteurized, but, like, organic or as natural butter as I could, and we would make that and cook with that, and it also was very healing, and it provided that consistency. Um, we started to implement things being like, "Okay, limit the amount of airplane food we eat. We bring our own food on the plane," because it's a lot on the nervous system and then everything is connected in our it's this beautiful ecosystem and when you start traveling at this kind of scale you start realizing if I don't get tuned in with my body and keep all of that in check and that as much as possible keep it regulated you're not going to be able to sustain it you'd have to fly back home for medical care because you don't have the energy and the stamina So we constantly evolved. We really definitely enjoyed ourselves in when it came to food, but we put processes in place where it helped us.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you just traveling in general is a shock to your body, not just from a physical perspective, but just from a mental and even spiritual perspective, where you go into a different place and all of a sudden you're sort of thrust into this new universe and you're trying to acclimate as fast as possible without getting sick. Like if you're drinking water that's not purified,
Yeah.
anytime somebody goes to Cambodia, we always tell them, yeah, just make sure your body's not used to it. So make sure you're getting like either filtered water or bottled water for you guys as you're going from place to place and essentially getting a new experience every single time. What types of things did you do to make sure you were in the best position to fully experience those different countries without getting overwhelmed or getting sick or anything like that?
So we did buy a water filtration system, like a small thing that you can essentially take out of the tap. And a lot of times when people go to Africa and places to do work, we researched it and we bought a system that in the beginning we would literally carry bottles of water when we were in South America because we knew we couldn't drink the water. So we would go shop like every other day. We're going through water, and partway through the trip, we invested. I think we were in Australia. We invested in this system because we knew we still had another like 6 7 months to go, and that helped. Um, from an energetic perspective, because we all are energetic beings, depending on what we believe, but what people believe, but we had a coach that we still worked with, and we leaned into some Buddhist practices because my husband and I are not religious, but we loved the principles of Buddhism. So to just so we can take care of our daughter, we had to take care of ourselves. We both started doing a lot more meditation. We incorporated a bit of a family prayer every morning just to kind of center us no matter where we are in the world, what religion, what culture, and some places are big energy forces and things are coming at you. And if you're not kind of protecting your sacred energy, you can very easily just feel depleted very quickly and overwhelmed. So every day we would, at the time our daughter was 5, we would do take 3 minutes in the morning and just meditate. And it was a single pointed meditation. We would just teach our daughter, find something to look at and just try to focus on that one spot. And no matter what comes, all the thoughts are going to come. We're not trying to fight the thoughts or not prevent the thoughts. We're all we want to do is don't attach to one thought. Think of each thought comes like you're thinking about lunch. Okay, let it go and float away like a cloud. You're thinking about the candy or the ice cream you want. Make it on at her level. And then I would also do the same thing for myself and my husband. And then we did our prayers together and to kind of ground us to be like, no matter what, we are here to be kind humans. Um, we are not going to, no matter what comes to us, what happens, we don't have to sway from our values. We don't have to engage because there's going to be tests. You're going to be tested in life. And so that anchored us fundamentally as a family. Everything else was built on that and it made it easier. So no matter where we were in the world, every morning we'd get up, we'd do a meditation, we'd do our breakfast, and we made our own schedule. So when you realize that, you start to realize I'm in control. I have the power, not the corporations, not like there's something that starts shifting when you're doing something so wild like this to the normal person, average person that wouldn't do something like this. You start realizing, wow, I have a lot more power than I always thought I did. I was just giving it away and I thought it was outside of myself. And so a lot less started focusing on the material things and it just started to kind of calibrate and give us a compass and being like, no matter what, as long as we stay true to our values and keep going, keep moving 1%, one step, and whatever that looks like in that country and
Mhm.
And one thing I always recommend is don't overbook yourself. We would pick one or two things, and in between, say we wanted to see a really large, say we went to the pyramids one day. The next day we're not doing anything. We are resting, we are calibrating because it involves a lot of energy. There's going to be thousands of people there, and what we don't realize is energy in and energy out. You're interacting constantly. And you can easily be depleted, and we were very mindful that we would spread out if there were monuments and things that we really wanted to see in those countries, which there were. We would spread them out throughout like our stay, and we tried really hard to, some places we stayed a month, maybe in the different parts of the country it would be a week here, a week in different, just because they're so diverse. Even within one
Hmm.
country, certain parts are so very different. And we did not want to, we weren't like backpackers going from uh every 1 day, 2 day. With a child, we were very mindful of protecting our health, making sure that we weren't overextending her, because she is a child and she's being exposed to so much. And we just wanted to make sure that there was uh, still time for her creativity and play and at the beach. And several times in several countries, we would put her just to get her socialized and also learn about the culture. There were different international schools that we researched. We would put her for 2 weeks in Bali, 2 weeks in Vietnam. She'd do a code camp in Australia, and partway, halfway through the trip in India, where I'm born, and I'd never been back in 38 years since I left. So it wasn't an ordinary experience like I'm going to India. This was a spiritual, like life altering um experience, because I had no idea what I was about to open. I had
Yeah,
uh
I think that's amazing. The journey of self-discovery through this year-long trip around the world is something that fascinates me immensely. Just because one, I don't think I have the courage right now to do it myself, but but two, uh, and I say that meaning both from a physical perspective, but I also think just like spiritually to be able to look at yourself in a place that's foreign, in places that are foreign, is very hard to do. As you were going and traveling through like the jungles and airport terminals and the desert, how much of yourself did you come to realize, or how much of yourself did you discover that wasn't there initially, like with this journey? And then maybe to cap it off, like talk about your time in India, going back home, and what that looked like.
so I was strategic on where I placed India in the trip, because I knew I had a charge around it. Emotionally, I had a charge around it. So I specifically put it halfway through my trip. It's being like, I don't want, I need time to prepare. So I think I felt like we did 4 months in South America, and I needed time to prepare. And at the beginning of my trip, the first country, we were a month in Costa Rica, and I was still a bit of a, for lack of a better word, I felt a bit of a disaster, because I was I was sitting in a lot of fear, being like, holy crap, what did we do? We had the life, and now we're gonna go in a year, and what are we gonna do after? And I had to really work on that, and being like, hey, Reet, that's a lot of time away, 1 day at a time. You're gonna take this experience so you don't rob yourself of the experience and come up to the end and being like, "Oh, man, I missed actually doing it." And so I had to get really present and really intentional every single day and say, "I'm gonna focus on today." And that helped me. And the woman that started at the beginning of that trip was, I call her a recovering control freak and perfectionist. And and
Okay.
I how many times I got like literally brought to my knees and broken, emotionally more, because I was facing myself in the mirror. Really, we think we're facing the world. It's you facing yourself, and your higher self is looking back and saying, "Oh, child, you of little faith. Like, you already have everything inside of you. You were created beautifully whole. Your programming told you you needed healing and you were broken and you weren't enough. And all of these ideologies were constantly going through my head, and I had to face them and repeat and rewire and retrain my thinking and saying, you are enough. And you do belong. You can be this beautiful, um eclectic person that's East meets West, and you can be all of that. You don't have to split yourself and saying, I don't belong in the Indian culture. I'm not white. Where do I, and I, that spent a lot of my life feeling that. And this trip helped me bring all of it. It had to come up. And a saying that I say it, you got to feel it to heal it. And,
Mm,
feel it to heal it is in the sense that it's got to come out. You really have to face yourself and face your fears and find that within what that means for you. It's different for all of us. And so the first 6 months led me to, you know, getting climatized with the change and
right.
letting my guard down, letting my expectations like just kind of like start to wash away a bit and being like, okay, we're gonna go with the flow. And I actually changed the order of our. We were supposed to go. We were in Bali. We were supposed to go to Vietnam next, and we're talking February, and we're looking at the time, and we're like, we got to do India next. The heat is going to be so intense by April that we got to switch it. We got to go do India and then we'll go to Vietnam. And we just did that on the fly. We switched our flights and I was like, oh my God, am I ready for India? but
Yeah.
I,
Were
kn-
you preparing yourself for this when you initially started the journey?
I was scared. Savan,
Yeah.
I was
I could imagine. I could imagine.
a little bit of history, like just to go back on my parents were arranged marriage in India. My father left when I was about 6 months old to come to Canada. And I'd never met him until he came to India when I was like 7 years old, and took my brother and I and said, "Hey, I'm going to bring you to Canada now, and I'll bring your mom later." But
Hmm.
he didn't have an intention of bringing my mom later, so he took my
Mm,
brother and I, essentially kidnapped us, and he had already started a new life. He had a a wife who was West Indian from Guyana. He had my half brother. He had another newborn son when we arrived, who was 6 months old, and it was like a bomb. But we're so young, and you realize children are pretty resilient. Even in the face of trauma, we are resilient. So we went to probably about 7, 8 years without seeing our birth mom again. Um, and we had this whole other life. We were dropped into a suburban white Caucasian neighborhood and told we got to speak English. We lost a lot of our language, like as in the tongue. It was still up here, but we were so focused on like becoming uniform and blending in and not standing out that it was you I disowned myself from my culture. He didn't really My father never really associated with a lot of Indians. He didn't um teach us a lot of cultural things. So we essentially just amalgamated and became Canadians, and whatever that meant for us for me at the time, I was like, I want nothing to do with India. I don't want to. Uh, I gotta fit in. I gotta save myself to get. And I disowned myself from a large part of myself and my culture. I and and this journey back to India was a coming home. And I was very scared because I was like, I don't barely speak English. I don't barely speak Punjabi is my mother tongue. And how am I going to do this? I felt a huge level of they're going to judge me. What's going to happen? And I had to face all of that. And I did it anyways. And India was the only country we hired a driver who drove us around because of the level of nerves that I had, and because it is a country that is so many people, and you don't want to be
yeah.
driving in it. So we just hired somebody and we planned it accordingly. And I had planned where I was born is in Punjab in a town called Moga. And I said, "Hey, I do want to spend a few days here just to kind of see what jogs my memory." And we planned it around that. And when we were there, I was like, I know my grandparents' village is nearby. I don't know, within 20 to 30 minutes. I was like, can we drive there? And he's like, okay. Like, he's like, it's gonna kind of take away from our plan. I was like, we got to go there. I called it last minute. I was like, we're in the car. I was like, no, I don't know why. We got to go there now. And he's like, okay, no problem. We go to the village. It's about 20, 30 minutes out of the city. I only knew the name. I don't
Hmm.
remember anything. I knew the name. I told him, here it is. And he took us there. I said, I don't know anybody. I had never been in touch with any family. My dad had cut it all off. So we're driving around this small village. It's like farms and just like nothing really looks familiar. It's been 38 years. and but I just had this feeling. There was something I trusted in my intuition and being like, this was where you came every weekend to visit your grandparents. Your family farm is on this land. Your dad was born here. I tell the driver, I'm like, pull over. I said, I need to just get my feet on the land. And I get out of the car, don't know what I'm doing. I'm just standing there looking, thinking like, maybe something's gonna happen. And there it is. I see a couple of butterflies, literally, Savan. Like I follow the butterflies. I always look at them as a little sign of like, these are such
Yeah.
powerful creatures. And two butterflies right in front of me. I follow them and they lead me to this house. I can't make it
Okay.
up. They lead me to this
Okay.
house and I'm telling the driver, I'm like, that house looks familiar. Like, I don't think it's our house, but I said something about the layout of it. It reminds me of a childhood memory of my grandparents' house, the way it is. He's like, go in. He's like, go in. I'm like, ah. He's like, great. You're like Bollywood. They just see a tourist coming in. He's like, they will welcome you here. And I was like, okay. So I just start walking in and into this house. And I tell my husband and daughter, I'm like, come with me. Like, and get in the car, let's go. And there's this young, maybe in her 20s girls, and she's just like kind of talking on the phone, but she gets off and she's starts speaking Punjabi, and I was like, all of a sudden it downloads. I am speaking like as fluently as an 8-year-old because that's as much as
Yeah.
I was like, I drop I name drop. I'm like, oh, do you know Chun Gill? My maiden name was Gill. And then a few people come from her family from the back of the house and some men. And I said, my grandfather lives in this village. He did live. Do you know the Gills? And it's like the Smith, right? But they're like, they sit down and they're like, yeah. They get one of my cousins on the phone. He's there in the house in 5 minutes, and the rest just blew up. Within, like, the next hours, everything went, like, they're calling my birth mom in Canada. I see all my cousins now, I recognize them. We're all older, but I was like, "Oh my god, we played together." They were just crying because they're like, "Your family's been looking for you." Because we had disconnected. My mother and I
Yeah.
met in my teen years, and through just challenges and not being able to get along and differences, we just went separate ways. And next thing I knew, 25 years had passed. And that day, everything came together. I found that my mom was looking for me. I also found that my brother had been murdered 15 years earlier. It's You want to know, like, just ripping your heart open in the utmost pain and then the utmost, like, peace at the same time. And then there's my daughter who's 5 watching all of this and being like, "Mom, you lied to me. You never told me you spoke another language. What is this?"
Yeah. Yeah.
The what's coming, like, I'm having to explain to her, being like, "Hey, sweetie, like, I'm surprising myself right now."
Yeah. You're learning about it at the same time,
Yeah, my
you
husband's
know?
watching
Oh,
all of this go down from, like, and they're just there holding space for me, being supportive. Um, I couldn't have done it without them. I feel like I it was the right timing. So I changed the plan that day. We were supposed to go and travel up north a couple hours, and I was like, my family's like, "You're not leaving." So I said, "Okay, listen, we're gonna spend the night here in the village," and we were up most of the night talking, and they're just excited, And I said, okay, like I can mentally handle one night, but I need to like process and integrate. And I think sometimes we forget, like other people have expectations. They thought I was going to drop everything, and my mom's like ready for me to fly back to Canada. And I was like, hey mom, like I love you. Thank you. I'm so grateful. That's not happening. I again trusting myself, and it's kind of devastating to tell your what mom that kind of was looking and has already lost a child. And I said, I will see you, but we have 6 more months of travel, and we're doing it. And when we come back to Canada in 6 months, we will come and we will spend some time with you. And I said, now that we're connected, I need this time for you to get to know me. So we'll have phone calls, get to know my husband, get to know my life in the last 25 years. I am not that child that left you at 7.
Yeah. Was
So
that the
I had
first
to
time you talked to your mom in years, or
25 years.
what was that like initially when you got on the phone?
The voice is like, it's like you never forget
Yeah.
you never, it's this, like, it's like, I felt like a child again. And in many ways, Savannah, I still was, because when you don't heal that part of you where the trauma happened, that 7-year
Hmm.
old girl is trapped inside of this 45-year-old body. So I had to really address, and I still do. It's not something that just is a one time, or I did a 30-day challenge and I'm off. It's a every day. Every time I talk to my mom, every time she triggers me. It's that she triggers an 8-year-old wound of a child that was felt unsafe, that didn't feel seen, and that had gone through a lot of the abuse. And I had to explain to her, and very challenging to explain to somebody that doesn't speak English, I'm trying to find the words in this complex situation. But I did. It got easier. It's been now 2.5 years, almost 3 years, of being connected, and it's taken a lot of work and boundaries and space, and teaching her that these boundaries are for me to love you better, and for me to be take my time to open up, and for what you want, I can't give it to you all right now. I am I have to take care of me because I'm a mom now. And I know what that I understand your wound. I can't feel like what you felt, but now that I'm a mom, I have more empathy and compassion for you. However, the empathy and compassion that I never had for my 7 and 8-year-old self, I have to give her that now. I have to reparent I have to reparent her at the same time as I'm parenting my daughter. I'm reparenting myself, and facing triggers and facing myself, and trying to leave my heart open with space to love my mom. And it's been this beautiful, intricate journey of kind of reweaving this tapestry of our life, of what it's gonna look like, what it is now. Teaching her, we cannot live in the past, mom. And I did have to be very honest after this last 2 years, a lot of repetition of this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me.
Right.
Oh, and
Right.
I said, Mom, this happened for us. This happened for us because we get to live the life we have now. If it every single thing did not happen the way it did, and it took me 45 years to get here, it's not like I I I just saw that the victim in me needed to do all of the feeling and the healing, and recognize that I'm not broken.
Hmm.
Situations happened out of my control, and this was my destiny. In order to marry the man that I am married to have the daughter that I have now, I needed to love every part of my story, not the ones that were just great. I needed to love my dad for doing what happened, what he did, taking us away, because I needed to understand, in the greater scheme now as an adult, he gave me opportunities that otherwise wouldn't have happened. He gave me pain and challenge to give me the resilience and the depth and the love and this trust in myself, this that despite what everybody else is saying, believe in yourself anyways, and go against the grain. Even if it doesn't make sense and people question you, think you're crazy, trust yourself. And I this year especially, I see a lot. My father passed away when I was 15, so he's been gone for a long time, but it's taken me so much time to be like, whoa, like to see what happened as an opportunity, not only a like this heavy trauma that was going to just break me. It's taken me 45 years to be like, little by little, being like, hey, if everything didn't happen, I couldn't be the person I am today. I couldn't have the courage, and that courage is built through challenges. It's not built when we're in our comfort zone and we're entitled and we get everything handed to us. It's built when we are challenged and we're stretched and we have to face our edges and we have to be really uncomfortable and face the fear and do it anyways.
I think the times of adversity are the times where you will grow the most. And especially when it comes to things that are either adversities that you have personally or within your immediate family. The struggles with your family specifically are some of the hardest, if not the hardest. I have the same struggles with my mom. She's a traditional Cambodian mom, and dad, traditional Cambodian dad. There's a lot that comes with that, but there's also a lot that's given with that to me. That I've learned throughout the years, and it's taken a long time to really accept a lot of the things they've been trying to teach me because I've been very
Hmm.
closed off growing up. Like I also, I didn't want to be part of the Cambodian community as a kid. I was just like, I'm trying to be as just another kid playing basketball in America. And I don't, I want to eat hamburgers and hot dogs. I don't want to eat traditional Cambodian meals. And the older I've gotten, the more sort of I've been open to, but also more welcome to what that looks like. And I think it's a beautiful thing. For Reet, for you with your daughter now, you've gone and done this massive journey. You've reconciled with your mom in many ways. How have you taken some of those lessons and then taught your daughter, what that looks like?
That's a powerful one. I think our kids are our gifts.
Right? Yep.
They're gonna mirror the parts of us that are not healed. Like I say that loosely, like that we're not loving or accepting about ourselves. It's not that
Hmm.
necessarily healed, but it's just something that we don't want to open that door. And
Hmm.
that was the day my daughter was born. It was like the most peaceful, most blissful, and most chaotic. And being like, now what? Now what do I do? Like everything came up, and feeling like that not belonging to a culture because I had just removed myself so much. And it was my way back. And now with my daughter, I want to give her every opportunity. And that comes with owning that she's 50% East Indian, and that, we'd raised her very much Western in Canada, but meeting my mom kind of opened and allowed her to feel so much more love, and allowed her to see that I have, being an only child, she's like, I have all these cousins. Why didn't you tell me? Like she just saw that, and I was like, what a gift. What a gift
Yeah.
for her to approach it like with that much fun and playfulness, and here I was worrying about it, and this kid is just overjoyed. She's not worried about the language. At moments, but she's like, "Mom, like, I don't understand." And I was like, "Mila, you are gonna teach my," she calls my mom Naniji. I said, "You're gonna teach Naniji things, and she's gonna teach you." And it's amazing how the elders and kids work together because there's such a deep connection, and elders love
Yes.
children, and children's love the elders, and it's just organically it comes together because children are more receptive and open until we close them off. And elders have this beautiful like playfulness. They love their grandchildren even more than they love us, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh, 100%. 100%.
there's more lightness and fun, and what can I make you to eat, and get that curiosity blooming. And that's what's kind of happened with my mom. I live in Hawaii now, and I flew her in last December. It was my first birthday spending with her since I was 7 years old, and my daughter got to spend 2 weeks here. She was in our home. She cooked different things, and just just also got to amalgamate in our life and got to see like who we are and what we do. And it was kind of a really beautiful experience, as nervous as I was to have my mom come and live with us for 2 weeks, because I was like, she doesn't speak English, she's not going to
Yep.
drive here, we're responsible, she had two knee replacements, so it was like, oh boy. But it was beautiful, another challenge for me to let my guard down and say, hey, stop worrying about the how and the just say yes. And it was such a gift, it to see my daughter get closer to my mom. My mom was so it was really, really good for her heart to
Hmm.
see that I am doing well, I'm healthy with my family. She loves and accepts that, she's like, she got why I married who I married. She
Mm,
understood she understood why I in her own way, she understood why I didn't wanna do the traditional Indian way, and why, and it gave her a little bit of insight, and I think it helped both of us connect, and it gave me more compassion for her, because now with the time that we had, she was able to open up about her own story, and being like, "Hey, Reet, I've taken care of my grandfather who was 98, passed away this summer. My mom has taken care of him my whole life. Like, as long as I'm not, she's like, Reet, in that culture, she's like, I've had to ask permission for 45 years for whatever I wanted to do. And she's like, this is the first time in my life I don't have anybody to ask permission to. And in my mind was
oof.
like,
Yes,
I
I know that
I
feeling.
I can't even fathom being a woman, and just because I've always felt like this control and power in myself, but it opened up my heart even more to be like, wow, to have to ask permission for everything. It opened my heart for understanding.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially in that culture. Um, that makes a lot of sense to me. Reed, you eventually landed in Hawaii, and um, one, how did you choose that as your landing spot for home, quote unquote home? And two, what are you doing there now? Like, how did you take all these experiences and learnings and apply it to where you are now in life?
So we take a year, 2022, 2023. We close out our year trip, 2023 in July. We land back in Canada, and
Hmm.
we had a plan to go to Canada for a couple of weeks to visit our family. So we fly to 2 weeks in Toronto, meet my mom. Like, essentially, we had a few inklings of where we wanted to go, but we knew we weren't going to go to like live in Canada again for the foreseeable future. We had that in agreement with my husband, but we just didn't know. So if we don't live in Canada, where do we live? Um, so we do our family meet and greet, and for 2 weeks, see them share. Then we had lived in Vancouver, so we had to go back to Vancouver to close off some things. We had some stuff in storage and just deal with some things. We spent a couple weeks in Vancouver. So during that month, we basically sat down and we started talking as a family, like, "Hey guys, what are we gonna do? Where are
Hmm.
we gonna live? Mila's got to start. She's gonna go back to school. What does that look like?" So we were like, we kind of wanted her to go to a private school, Waldorf, going all sorts of things. So my husband and I couldn't decide, and I was like, okay, we got to let Mila decide. My daughter Mila, and I was like, hey Mila, if you can live anywhere in the world, where would it be? And she goes, Disneyland, mom. And I was like, of course. I was like, well, we can't live in Disneyland, but we can visit. That's no problem. But nobody can really live in Disneyland. And
Right,
I was
right.
like, your next place. And right, like she didn't hesitate. Right, she shoots. She's like Hawaii, and I was like, I look at my husband, and I'm just like, what I never told anybody. Earlier that year, and when we do our New Year's resolution, whatever, I had written down, I was like, if I can dream as big as I want, the top three places where would it live? I was like, Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii. And there it is. I looked at my husband. It all like made sense because my husband's dual citizen. And I was like, hey, let's do it. I don't want to be in the cold. Let's try. Something's calling us there. And on our travels, someone had told me and planted the seed and saying, hey, Hawaii is the heart chakra of the earth. And I was like, at that point, I remember being like, I know my heart needs to open more with everything that's happened. And in order for me to integrate this all big life experience, I need a space where I can be held, I can integrate, and I need the space away from my family to do this with my immediate family, to really just so that was 2 years ago. We literally booked our flights. We didn't know about schools because now it's, beginning of August. School starts in, Hawaii at the beginning of August, so we're, like, scrambling. But again, we leaned in, we booked our flight, and my husband and I, we reached out to a couple of friends who knew, Hawaii, lived here, and they're like, "Oh, you gotta live in Kailua. It's such a great community, family, school." We listened. We found furnished rental, and we're like, let's go. As Canadians, Mila and I were, we can go there 6 months. Let's try it out. And I said, we'll figure it out as we go, like anything else. And here we are. We come. We land like a week before we arrive. We find our rental, sign the lease, and then get Mila into this chartered school that we're like, okay, it's a small school. All the private schools, they've closed off their everything, so we gotta pivot. And so many pivots later, we just kept saying yes, 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 and trusting. And now we're 2 years in living in Hawaii. My husband, on our world around the trips, halfway through, he'd opened his own business consulting firm and he started consulting. So that started to bring in revenue. And I had started already coaching women. At the time, it was more generic mindset coaching and just overall life coaching. And as
Hmm.
I've kind of built and landed here and got my family settled, got my daughter and I our green cards and my husband's business stable, now I've niched and now I help women rebrand and restyle their life and more niche and focused on midlife women, whether you're a new mom, new entrepreneur, or menopausal, and you're going through some extreme large life changes and you feel lost. I want to help ground them back in themselves and remember who they are, not what everybody tells them to be, and remind them they can be whoever the hell they want at any time in any stage of their life. They can restyle all of their life, and that it's connected to mindset because it all starts here and here, and and the outside reflects. And as much as we say, "Oh, it doesn't matter," yes, it does. You tell me when you're feeling your best and you show up in your, clean haircut, fresh hair, you feel good about yourself. You're walking into that next meeting
Absolutely.
confident and you own yourself. So I think as women after having our children or going through these major life changes, we kind of like put ourselves on the back burner. We lose our compass and we just need help. And I know I hire coaches and I have coaches. If I don't know something, I'm hiring somebody to get me to that next place I want to go that's done it before and is a bit more of an expert. So I love helping women because I've been through all of this in my life and I know I didn't get here alone, but I needed to really value myself and I am my greatest return on investment. If I don't invest in myself, my family, my daughter, my relationships, everything in my life shows and suffers. So this has been the journey back home. And so I coach women whether they're rebranding their business and they want to relaunch, whether they are a mom and they're just feeling like I don't feel fit this body anymore, or I don't know what to do. Let's let you love and accept where you are. If you want the change to come, you have to put the things in process, but that you can't do unless you accept exactly 100% who you are, where you are today, and then we
Right.
build.
Right. Yeah, I love that. On that note, Reed, last question. Since you're a coach, this might be right up your alley. But if if someone were listening to this segment today and they were feeling stuck or lost or just needed some guidance, right? Or disconnected from themselves, what's one small thing they could do to help reignite that light in them to keep them going?
I think the one single most impactful thing, and we underestimate it, and I'm always amazed at the women I coach, they don't know their
Hmm.
values.
Mm,
they don't understand their values, and I think what was so pivotal for me is sit down, open a book, a
mhm,
blank page, and write down what's important to you. It don't
mhm,
judge it. Sit open and take the pressure off that you have to have it all figured out, because it will uncover, right? We're here to just peel away the layers and write
mhm,
down what's really important. Not important to your mom and dad, not important to your kids even, not important to your husband. It starts with you. And
mm. Okay.
get really curious with that list. That list that you make. And mine are health, relationships, joy and play. Um, these are the words I'm throwing out that are my top values. And I if I don't stay true to those, I find myself lost or I'm angry at somebody else, because again, it comes back to you. And it may seem like, and it's very simple. You can Google ChatGPT and say, send me some questions to figure out my values. It'll generate some questions you ask yourself. And with the tools we have, if you don't have the money, it's the first exercise I go with all my rebranding restyle. Let's get clear on your values first. What is not the how, what is your why,
Right.
right? and
Yeah.
and that's it's really, you'll shock yourself, because some of the most simplest things it gives you clarity on, and sometimes we're living in other people's values that were imprinted on us, that we were reprogrammed. And what was my parents' values? That I should have been a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. And I was chasing for so long, going to school for all of these things that one, I would just keep dropping out because I didn't want to do it. I wasn't aligned. It was not in alignment. And when I started to do what I wanted to do, and I left the corporate world, I went and served at a restaurant without the judgment. I drew the people into my life. I became magnetic. I
Mhm.
got I
Yeah,
had the
I
most
believe it.
fun. I played and I had more joy in my life. And you know what? I was of service. Every day I got up, my purpose was just go serve people. Serve people food, make them hungry, like hungry people fed. And service is is the currency of the universe. So when you align your values and you figure out you a little bit,
Mhm.
you'll be able to serve people. And and I think just getting out of our own way and not making it all about us. We're in this world consciously, and we're all together as one and connected, and we think we're separate from you know the different minorities and different ethnicities. We're separate. And I
Yeah,
coming back home was reminding
yeah,
me I'm connected to Khmer people, I'm connected to Caucasian people, I'm connected to African, like, and European. Like, we are human first.
yeah. I love that. I love
So
that.
that would be just really sit down and ask yourself, like, what do I value in life? Not my mom and dad and my husband and my sister. What do I value as your 8-year-old self? What was the things that brought you joy? Because that's where the answer is. Go back to where, link it to when you were a kid. We got all messed up throughout our adolescence,
Yeah,
but
we lost track
what
somewhere for sure.
yeah, that's the key. Link it back to, what did you love doing as a kid? Oh, you playing with your hands, building, art, music?
Yep,
That's where the
yep,
key and the answer is.
yep. I love that. Reet, my friend, thank you so much for sharing your heart and your story. It was amazing and inspiring, and in many ways the complete opposite of my story, which is it's something I'm aspiring to do, to blow up your life and to be brave enough to start again. And I've appreciated you coming on. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Savan. Thank you for having me on. And I loved learning and sharing and having this conversation. Thank you for holding space for me. I appreciate it.
Be well, my friend. We'll talk soon.
You too. Bye.
All right. Bye bye.